The wind came in wild, icy bursts, rattling the window panes of the old farmhouse on the edge of Woodstock, Vermont. Charlotte, Charlie Myers lay in bed, eyes wide open, feeling the kind of restlessness that crawls under your skin and won't let go. She was 54, a retired Army medic with more scars than she ever cared to count, some still healing, some she knew would never fade. Tonight, the silence was heavy, but not empty. It pressed on her chest, reminding her of every loss, every memory she'd buried under the routines of small-town life. Scout, her German shepherd, paced the bedroom, tail low and ears twitching with alertness. He was no stranger to trouble, and neither was she. Scout whined, then pawed at the door, muscles tensed as if he could smell a story unraveling outside in the dark. Charlie muttered to herself, slid on boots, and grabbed a flashlight. There was no point pretending she could ignore that pull. Scout never sounded the alarm without reason. The wind nearly ripped the door from her hand as she stepped outside, Scout darting ahead into the storm-swept night. The fields were a sea of shadows, grass flattened by sheets of cold rain. All the lights in the house behind her were swallowed up in blackness as they moved farther from safety. Scout led her straight to the old barn, its wooden slats groaning under the assault of the storm. Charlie hesitated, her heart pounding with dread, but Scout barked once, sharp and urgent, so she pressed on. The barn's door swung open, banging against the frame with a force that echoed in her bones. Inside, the scent of old hay and mildew filled her nose and she caught it, a whimper, almost too soft to be real. She swung the flashlight beam through the darkness, squinting past swirling dust and falling rain that had blown in through broken boards. There, curled up in a nest of hay, was a little girl. Charlie's throat tightened. The child couldn't have been more than 8, her hair tangled, lips blue from cold, shivering so hard her teeth chattered. Scout approached slowly, wagging his tail in a low arc, then lay down beside her, body curved around the child like a shield. Charlie knelt, pulling her coat from her shoulders and wrapping it around the girl. The child whimpered, barely conscious, and tried to burrow deeper into the warmth. Charlie's hands shook as she checked for injuries. Her training took over. She focused on the practical, but her mind flashed with the memory of another little girl, her own, lost to a split-second mistake years ago. That memory sharpened her desperation. This time, she would not fail. Scout met her eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. He licked the girl's cheek, gentle, coaxing a faint sigh from her lips. It was as if Scout was promising Charlie, "I've got her. We've got her." Thunder cracked overhead. The barn shuddered. Charlie lifted the girl, heart racing, and bolted back toward the house. Rain battered her face, wind howling so loud she could barely hear the girl's faint breaths. Inside, she set the child near the stove, fumbling to light a fire. Scout pressed close, his body heat joining the growing warmth of the flames. Charlie tried to dial 911, hands clumsy, but finally got through. Her words were frantic, urgent. "There's a child, she's freezing, please, we need help." She wrapped the girl in blankets, rubbing her arms, whispering encouragement. "You're safe now, honey. You're safe." Still, she wondered if she was saying it for the girl or for herself. Minutes stretched like hours until the sound of sirens cut through the storm. Paramedics swept in, all business, but Charlie refused to let go until she knew the girl was breathing steady and warm again. One medic gently pried the little girl's hand from Scout's fur. She clung to him like a lifeline. As they loaded her into the ambulance, Scout leapt in behind, ignoring the shouts to stay out. Charlie followed, soaked to the bone, fear sitting heavy in her gut. The drive was a blur, Scout pressed against the gurney, Charlie holding the girl's small hand, repeating her own daughter's name like a silent prayer. Every bump in the road jarred a new memory loose. At the hospital, the nurses took over. Charlie found herself at the sink, scrubbing mud and hay from her hands, her mind running wild with questions. Who was this child? Why was she alone in the barn, in a storm like this? A police officer brushed past, muttering about deadbeat parents. The words struck Charlie like a slap. Was she rescuing this girl or chasing redemption for herself? Later, as the hospital lights softened and the chaos receded, Scout never left the girl's side. The two were a tableau of comfort in the storm's aftermath. The big, gentle dog curled around the child, and Charlie, standing watch at the window, unable to shake the sense that this night had changed everything. Just before drifting to sleep, the girl mumbled something, her voice barely audible. Charlie leaned in, catching the name Lily and a single word, Daddy. That was when Charlie understood. This was no ordinary runaway. This child had been left here, and nothing in Charlie's life would ever be the same. Rain hammered the ambulance roof as they sped through the back roads of Woodstock, red and blue lights cutting the darkness. Charlotte gripped the gurney with white knuckles, her coat still wrapped tight around Lily's frail frame. Scout sat wedged beside Lily, pressed so close his fur soaked up the chill from her skin. Every few seconds, he'd nudge her with his nose, as if urging her to stay awake, stay here, stay alive. The sirens wailed. Charlotte felt her heart thudding in her chest, matching the rhythm of tires skidding through muddy bends. Her voice was raw from repeating reassurances, soft, breathless murmurs meant as much for her as for Lily. "Almost there, kiddo. Just a little longer. Hang in with me." Inside the ER, bright fluorescent lights stabbed at Charlotte's eyes, and the world fractured into a blur of movement. Nurses barked orders. Dr. Franklin Mason, a tall, gray-haired man with a sharp, gentle face, moved with urgent precision. Scout paced, uneasy, unwilling to leave Lily's side as they checked her vitals. Nurse Elena Brooks, a petite woman with steady hands and the kind of voice that could calm a hurricane, helped Charlotte out of her soaked jacket. "Let's get you both warm," she whispered, nodding at Scout, who refused to budge from Lily's stretcher. They stripped away layers of wet clothing from Lily, revealing bruises, some fresh, some faded, and old scars running up her arms and down her legs. Elena's face tightened. She exchanged a wordless glance with Dr. Mason. Charlotte, numb, was ushered aside, but her gaze never left Lily's pale face. As the nurses wrapped Lily in warm blankets, Scout jumped up, planting himself beside her, and Lily's trembling hand clung to his ruff. The dog's steady presence seemed to calm her trembling just a little. The hospital was a hive of activity, but around Lily, everything quieted, as if time was suspended. Charlotte stood at the doorway, her mind spiraling through worry and shame. Why hadn't she gotten there sooner? Could she have done more? A police officer entered. Officer McNeil, a local with a reputation for being gruff but fair. He started taking Charlotte's statement while she stared at Lily through the glass. His questions were routine, but one offhand comment landed like a punch. "Probably another case of deadbeat parents. We see it all the time." Charlotte flinched. For a moment the words echoed, twisting around her own failures as a mother. Was this what the world saw when they looked at her, someone always chasing after lost causes, never quite saving the ones who needed it most? She was given a cup of stale coffee and led to a small sink in the hallway to wash the mud from her hands. As the water ran brown and cold, her reflection in the steel faucet blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Meanwhile, Scout lay on the hospital bed beside Lily. The girl, despite her exhaustion, never let go. Her fingers tangled in his thick fur, knuckles white, as if Scout was the only anchor keeping her in this world. The dog's eyes tracked Charlotte, soft and questioning, as if asking if everything would be okay. Dr. Mason came out, pulling off his gloves. "She's stable now, but she's been through a lot," he said quietly. "We'll need to run more tests. She hasn't spoken much except to ask if her dog could stay." Charlotte smiled through her exhaustion. "He's not hers, he's mine, but I guess now he's both of ours." Elena returned with a blanket and a quiet smile. She sat beside Charlotte in the waiting area, warmth radiating from her presence. "You did the right thing bringing her in. Some nights, the hardest thing is to act." Charlotte glanced through the glass again. Scout had stretched out, Lily's tiny body tucked against his side. The image tugged at Charlotte's chest, a living, breathing moment of hope. Later, Charlotte was allowed back into the room. The world outside the hospital seemed to disappear. There was only the soft hum of machines and the rhythmic rise and fall of Lily's breath. Charlotte sat at the edge of the bed and gently brushed a damp curl from Lily's cheek. In the quiet, Lily finally looked at Charlotte, big, wary eyes searching her face for answers. The silence stretched so long it became its own kind of conversation. Charlotte offered a trembling smile. "My name's Charlie. You're safe here. Can you tell me your name?" Lily's lips parted, but nothing came out at first. Then, in a cracked, whispery voice, she said, "Lily." The words seemed to cost her all her strength. Her eyelids fluttered. Scout nuzzled her, and Lily managed another word, this one almost a prayer. "Daddy." Charlotte swallowed, heart twisting. There it was, the clue, the question. Where was Lily's father? Who had left her alone in that barn, bruised and broken? Outside, Officer McNeil finished his notes, glancing in through the glass. Dr. Mason made a call to child services. Elena tucked an extra blanket around Lily, then pressed a gentle hand to Charlotte's shoulder. In a quiet corner of the hospital, Charlotte sat beside the sink, scrubbing at invisible stains, lost in her own doubts. Every scrape and bruise on Lily's skin was a story waiting to be told, and Charlotte felt the old ache of not being able to fix everything. When she returned to the room, Scout was curled around Lily, both dozing. The peace between them felt fragile, like a promise easily broken. As the hospital settled into a late-night lull, Charlotte sat in the dark, listening to the distant beeping of monitors and the soft, even breathing of the girl and the dog. She wondered if she was rescuing Lily or herself, maybe both. Somewhere in the dark, hope flickered, a fragile, trembling thing like a candle in a storm, and Charlotte vowed she'd do everything in her power to keep it alive. Morning crept slow and cold across the hospital parking lot. Sunlight pooled on frosted windows, smearing gold across the worn linoleum of the pediatric ward. For the first time in years, Charlotte Charlie Myers found herself wishing she could slow time, if only to let this little girl heal before the world demanded more from her. The hospital room was warm, filled with the gentle hum of monitors and the distant shuffle of nurses' shoes. Scout lay curled at the end of Lily's bed, tail thumping softly each time someone entered, eyes never far from the child he'd claimed as his own. Charlie stepped in, arms full. She'd driven home just before dawn, her mind whirring with memories she could neither shake nor face, then returned carrying a homemade patchwork quilt and a battered, button-eyed teddy bear, her daughter's favorite, from another lifetime. As she laid the quilt over Lily's legs, Lily flinched but did not pull away, her gaze wary and hollow. The day stretched on. Dr. Mason came and went with quiet efficiency, reading charts and updating nurses. Nurse Elena seemed to materialize whenever Lily needed comfort, a fresh cup of apple juice, a whispered promise that Scout would be allowed to visit each morning. Lily was silent through most of it, communicating only through tiny movements, a slow blink, the twitch of a hand, a frightened glance whenever the door banged open too hard. At breakfast, Scout jumped onto the chair beside Lily and waited, ears perked. Lily glanced at Charlie, then reached out, offering a piece of toast to the dog. Scout accepted it gently, and for a brief moment, Lily's mouth twitched into a shy, fleeting smile. Charlie caught it, her heart swelling with hope and heartache all at once. The little victories became everything. Lily allowed Elena to brush her hair so long as Scout sat at her feet. She pressed the teddy bear to her chest at night, falling asleep to the dog's steady breathing. But she still startled at footsteps in the hallway, still avoided looking anyone in the eye except Scout. Most nights, Charlie stayed in the hospital waiting room, curled up on stiff plastic chairs. She passed the hours scrolling through old photos, her daughter's toothless grin, the three-legged dog they'd rescued together, sun-drenched days she'd spent years trying to forget. She wondered, not for the first time, what it meant to be needed again, and if she was strong enough to answer that call. One evening, after Lily's vitals were checked and the nurses had finished their rounds, Elena found Charlie standing at the window, watching snow begin to fall over Woodstock. Elena leaned against the frame, arms crossed, voice low. "You look exhausted. You can talk to me, you know." Charlie hesitated, the words heavy on her tongue. "I'm just scared I'm not enough. I wasn't enough for my daughter. I couldn't save her. What if I fail Lily too?" Elena touched Charlie's arm, firm but kind. "You're here. That's more than most." Their eyes met, and Charlie finally let her tears fall. For a moment she didn't have to be strong. Days blurred into each other, marked by routines. Lily's bruises faded, the swelling around her eye disappeared, but she barely spoke. Scout remained her silent guardian, always nearby. Sometimes, in the quietest hours of the afternoon, Charlie would watch as Lily traced circles in the air with her finger, lost in her own thoughts. Scout would nudge her hand, and Lily would place her palm on his head, finding something like safety in his steady presence. On a snowy Thursday morning, Lily finally spoke more than a whisper. Charlie brought in oatmeal and apple slices, setting the tray on the small table by the window. Lily picked at her food, silent, until Scout patted over and rested his chin on her knee. Carefully, Lily lifted a spoonful of oatmeal and offered it to the dog. Scout licked it clean and Lily giggled, a sound so small Charlie almost missed it. "You like him, huh?" Charlie asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Lily nodded, fingers tangled in Scout's fur. Charlie smiled. "He likes you too. He doesn't let just anyone feed him. He's picky about his friends." A tiny smile flickered across Lily's lips. "He's nice." That afternoon, while Lily dozed in the late sun, Charlie broke down in the staff lounge. Elena found her, shoulders shaking, head in her hands. Charlie's words spilled out in a flood. I don't know how to do this again. I don't know how to be what she needs. What if I can't save her? Elena knelt, pulling Charlie's hands into her own. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up. You already did the hardest part. Meanwhile, Lily began to draw again, clutching a dull crayon with determination. She handed Charlie her first drawing, a stick figure girl, a large dog, and a woman holding both their hands. The image was wobbly, uncertain, but unmistakably hopeful. Charlie's breath caught in her throat. She pinned the drawing on the wall above the bed next to a faded photo of her own daughter. It wasn't all progress. Some nights Lily woke screaming, haunted by memories she couldn't voice. Scout would leap onto the bed, circling her until she quieted, his big body shielding her from whatever ghosts lingered in the dark. Then one evening, as snow fell thick and soft outside, Lily looked up at Charlie with panic in her eyes and whispered, "Please, please don't let her find me." Charlie's blood went cold. She knelt, wrapping her arms around Lily, promising, "You're safe. I'm here. Nobody's going to hurt you." But inside, a storm churned. Who was Lily running from, and how much danger were they all in? Night settled over the hospital, but inside Lily's room, hope flickered, fragile and bright. For the first time in a long while, Charlie believed maybe, just maybe, healing was possible, even for the most wounded hearts. Morning brought a quiet gray light and the restless shuffle of winter boots in the hospital hallway. For the first time in days, Lily let herself linger in a doze, Scout's head heavy and warm on her lap. Charlie arrived early, balancing hot chocolate in one hand and a little paper bag of sugar donuts in the other. She paused at the threshold, watching the unlikely pair, child and dog, tangled in a comfort that felt more profound than anything words could touch. On the chair, Lily's coat lay rumpled, pockets turned out from a nurse's careful inspection. Charlie sat and picked it up, checking for anything the staff might have missed. Her fingers brushed something stiff and folded. Buried in the lining was a crumpled letter. Charlie hesitated, then unfolded it, heart thudding with guilt and curiosity. The note was written in shaky, childish script. "Dear Daddy, I'm scared. Please come get me. Love, Lily." Charlie's heart clenched. The letters were smudged, some words nearly washed away. There was no address, no date, just raw fear. Charlie tucked the letter away, questions blooming faster than answers. Why would someone abandon this child? Where was her father? Scout shifted, sensing Charlie's distress. He looked up, searching her face as if urging her not to give in to despair. The dog's quiet presence had become a kind of anchor, not just for Lily but for Charlie herself. She knelt, rubbing Scout's ears, and the dog pressed his head into her palm, patient and steadfast. A flashback hit Charlie hard. She remembered Afghanistan, the endless sand, the sound of helicopters, and her own hands shaking as she tried to save a young soldier she couldn't forget. She'd failed then, just as she failed her daughter years later. Guilt was an old companion, always lurking. But Scout had a way of pulling her back to the present, to what needed doing now. In the days that followed, Scout's devotion to Lily deepened. Whenever anyone new entered the room, Scout positioned himself between Lily and the door, his eyes watchful but never threatening. When Lily awoke from nightmares, Scout climbed onto the bed, his slow breathing a lullaby, his warm fur soaking up her tears. The hospital staff began calling him the little girl's shadow. Even the most jaded nurses couldn't help but soften at the sight. One snowy afternoon, Charlotte brought in a box of crayons and blank paper. Lily eyed them warily at first, then reached for a purple crayon. The silence between them was gentle, filled with small sounds. Scout's huff of contentment, the squeak of crayons on paper. When Lily was finished, she slid the drawing to Charlie, a stick figure of herself, Scout and Charlie holding hands, bright smiles beaming under a cartoon sun. Charlie's eyes stung. She tacked the drawing above Lily's bed. "You're a real artist," she said, her voice thick. Lily grinned shyly and hugged the teddy bear closer. Later, while Lily napped, Nurse Elena came by on her break. She found Charlie pacing the hallway, worry lines deep on her forehead. "You look like you haven't slept in days," Elena said, leaning against the wall. "Want to talk?" Charlie exhaled, shoulders slumping. "I found a letter in Lily's coat. She wrote to her dad, but there's nothing else. No one's come forward. What kind of mother would leave her child in a barn during a storm? Elena's gaze grew distant. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, then surprised Charlie by speaking quietly. I know what it's like. I grew up with parents who left me alone more times than I can count. Sometimes the ones who should love us most are the ones who hurt us. For a moment, the two women stood in companionable silence, joined by wounds only they could see. Thank you, Charlie whispered. For everything. That evening, the hospital's social worker, a cautious, slow-talking woman named Marjorie, visited to review Lily's case. We're doing all we can, she assured Charlie, but her eyes betrayed a deep worry. Do you remember anything about the barn? Any sign of who brought her? Charlie's mind worked over the memory, replaying each detail. There were tire tracks, fresh ones, leading right up to the barn door, and the hay where Lily was sleeping was dry, like it was put there for her. Marjorie made notes. That's important. Scout barked, a single sharp sound. Charlie turned to see Lily awake, clutching the letter. Her voice was small, but urgent. I didn't want to leave Daddy. She said we'd see him, but she lied. She left me. Charlie knelt, brushing Lily's hair back. You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you. Scout pressed closer, nose bumping Lily's hand. She reached for a crayon and began drawing again. A dark car, a long road, a small figure waving goodbye. Charlie realized with a jolt that Lily hadn't run away. She'd been left, deliberately. That night, as Charlie walked the hospital grounds to clear her head, she saw something she'd missed before. Tire tracks in the snow near the ER entrance, still crisp and unbroken. Someone had brought Lily here and vanished into the storm. She snapped a photo on her phone, adrenaline humming through her veins. For the first time, the fear that had haunted her since that night in the barn was joined by something else: resolve. Scout met her at the door, tail wagging, ready for whatever came next. Charlie crouched beside him, whispering into the dog's ear. We're going to find out the truth. I promise. Inside, Lily slept with Scout curled against her, their breaths rising and falling in sync, safe for one more night. But the questions no longer felt insurmountable. For the first time in years, Charlie felt not just the weight of guilt, but the pull of purpose. The storm had scattered the pieces of their lives, but now she was ready to put them back together. The next morning, frost coated every branch and fence post in Woodstock, painting the world in brittle white. Charlotte Charlie Myers woke before dawn, her mind buzzing with questions, her jaw tight with resolve. Today wasn't about waiting for the next storm, it was about gathering strength and finding answers. First, she made a call she'd been putting off. Carla Jensen, her old army buddy, now deputy sheriff, answered on the second ring. Myers, you know it's 6 a.m, right? Charlie's voice was steady. I've got a little girl here. Her name's Lily. She was abandoned, left in a barn. I need your help, Carla. I need you to believe me. A pause, then the unmistakable sound of boots thumping on a floor. Give me an hour. Text me the address. Charlie hung up, a flicker of relief in her chest. She was no stranger to making tough calls, but asking for help had always been hardest. Now she'd do whatever it took. At the hospital, the staff greeted Lily like she was one of their own. Neighbors dropped off homemade muffins and quilts. A local bakery left a card. For Lily and Scout, with love. The whole town had seen the story on the local news. Some called Lily the miracle in the barn. Most just wanted her to feel safe. Carla arrived in uniform, all sharp lines and clipped words, but her eyes softened when she saw Lily clutching Scout. Mind if I sit? Carla asked, lowering herself to Lily's level. Scout thumped his tail, giving her a sniff of approval. Lily, hiding behind Scout's shoulder, nodded. Carla kept her questions gentle, never pushing too hard. Do you remember anything about the night you ended up in the barn, sweetie? Lily's voice was nearly a whisper. It was cold. She said Daddy would be there, but he wasn't. She drove away. Carla made careful notes, her expression darkening. After the interview, Carla and Charlie walked out to the parking lot together. Carla squinted at the sky, then at the tire tracks Charlie had photographed the night before. Mind showing me the barn? Charlie drove, Carla following in her squad car. Scout rode shotgun, nose pressed to the window, alert and ready. At the barn, Carla snapped photos. The tracks, the scattered hay, a child's necklace tangled in the straw, and the battered stuffed bear. Everything felt significant. like pieces of a puzzle only now coming into view. Back in town, word traveled fast. The sheriff stopped by the hospital to offer extra patrols outside Lily's window. Someone from the local church brought a casserole. Parents in the neighborhood organized a sign-up sheet to bring dinner every night for a week. The community wasn't just watching, they were rallying. That afternoon, while Lily was napping, Charlie sat at a window seat with a stack of letters she'd collected from Lily's coat. Among them was one she hadn't noticed before, addressed but never mailed. To Daddy. I miss you. Please come home. I'll be good. Love, Lily. Charlie stared at the looping letters, a knot forming in her chest. Where was Lily's father? Was he searching for her, or had he given up long ago? On impulse, Charlie opened her laptop and reached out to a few friends from her military days. She'd built a network of people who'd never let a child down. I need to find Daniel Rhodes, she typed. He's Lily's dad. Last known address was out of state. It's urgent. Within an hour, the replies started coming in. Old contacts, some she hadn't spoken to in years, offered to check databases, reach out to mutual friends, dig into public records. Hope flared. Meanwhile, the local press got wind of the case. Charlie was asked to make a statement. She stood on the hospital steps, facing microphones and cameras, her hands steady, her voice fierce. Lily is safe now, thanks to the quick work of local first responders and thanks to Scout. But I ask that you respect her privacy. She's been through enough. A reporter pressed, "Is there a criminal investigation?" Charlie nodded. "The authorities are looking into it. We have reason to believe this was intentional abandonment." Back in the ward, Lily clung to Scout, her eyes wide with worry. Later that evening, when the hospital grew quiet and the winter sun faded to blue, she asked Charlie, "Will you still love me if my daddy doesn't come?" The question split Charlie in two. She knelt beside the bed, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. "You don't ever have to earn love, Lily. You're safe here, and I'm not going anywhere." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, burying her face in Scout's fur. Meanwhile, Carla's investigation picked up speed. She traced the tire tracks back to a rental agency outside of town, matching the description of a car rented by a woman named Janine Rhodes, the same last name as Lily's father. Digging further, Carla discovered surveillance footage. Janine's car near the barn that night, headlights off, moving fast. With every new piece of evidence, the case sharpened into focus. Carla returned to the hospital, sharing the news in low voices with Charlie while Lily slept. "It's clear, Charlie. Lily wasn't lost. She was left." Charlie gripped her friend's hand. Gratitude and sorrow tangled together. "Thank you, Carla. I just want her to have a chance. A real one." That night, Lily drew another picture. A family with stick arms joined together, Scout in the middle, a house under a big yellow sun. Charlie pinned it to the wall next to the others. Scout stretched out on the floor, eyes half closed, but always listening. Outside, fresh snow began to fall, blanketing the world in silence and second chances. Inside, for the first time, Charlie felt they weren't alone in the fight. The courthouse in Woodstock was a brick building with creaking floors and windows that rattled whenever the wind blew. On the day of the hearing, the air felt electric, charged with tension and hope, the kind that gathers before a thunderstorm. Neighbors filled the gallery, murmurs bouncing off the old wooden benches. At the front, Judge Marlene Hargrove presided, her gray eyes missing nothing. Charlotte Charlie Myers wore her best blouse, hair pinned back, heart pounding beneath her calm surface. Scout was freshly brushed and wearing a red service vest, his presence officially requested for Lily's comfort. The little girl clung to his collar, her small hands white-knuckled, her gaze fixed on the floor. Across the aisle sat Janine Rhodes, Lily's mother. Her lipstick was perfect, her hair swept back, but her eyes flickered with nervous calculation. She wore a crisp suit, but no warmth. Next to her, a lawyer shuffled papers and whispered, but Janine hardly listened. She barely looked at her daughter. Dr. Franklin Mason took the stand first. His testimony was steady, clinical, explaining Lily's hypothermia, the pattern of bruises, the malnutrition that took months to develop. He spoke without anger, but the truth stung. This child was in critical condition when admitted. Her injuries were not accidental. Nurse Elena Brooks followed, her voice soft but unwavering. She described Lily's fear, her reluctance to speak, her attachment to Scout and Charlie. She only relaxed when Scout was present, Elena said, her eyes on the judge. She flinched from adult voices, especially women's. Janine's lawyer objected. "Speculation," Elena shook her head. I know what neglected children look like. Lily was terrified of her mother. Janine sat stone-faced, hands clenched tight in her lap. The prosecution introduced evidence. The letter from Lily's coat, the photographs Carla took at the barn, tire tracks, Lily's stuffed bear, the necklace. Surveillance footage played on a grainy monitor showing Janine's car pulling up to the barn late at night, headlights off. When the time came, Carla took the stand. She recounted her investigation, the links between Janine and the car, the paper trail of rental receipts, the timeline that left no room for coincidence. The judge's brow furrowed. Janine's lawyer countered, painting her as a frightened, overwhelmed single mother. Janine took the stand herself, voice trembling. I never meant to leave Lily. I just needed help. I thought someone would find her. Judge Hargrove stared her down. You didn't call the police. You didn't leave a note. You left your daughter in a freezing barn in the middle of a storm. Janine's voice broke, tears streaming. I was desperate. Her father left us. I didn't know what to do. Throughout, Scout sat at Lily's feet, eyes locked on Janine with quiet intensity. Janine tried to ignore him, but she kept glancing at the dog, unsettled, unable to meet his gaze. Scout didn't move, didn't bark, just radiated loyalty and protection. Finally, it was Lily's turn. Charlie knelt beside her, Scout wedged between them. Judge Hargrove leaned forward. Lily, do you want to say anything? The room went silent. Lily stared at her shoes, twisting her fingers in Scout's fur. Slowly, she looked up. I was scared, she whispered. Scout kept me warm. I thought Daddy would come, but he didn't. I just wanted to go home. Janine sobbed. For the first time, guilt cracked her composure. Charlie's throat tightened. She reached for Lily's hand, squeezing gently. Judge Hargrove leaned back, eyes shining. Oh, thank you, Lily. That was very brave. The hearing adjourned. The judge took a recess, and the crowd buzzed with tension. Out in the hallway, reporters waited, cameras ready. Charlie kept her arm around Lily, whispering soft reassurances, while Scout stood as a silent shield. When everyone returned to the courtroom, Judge Hargrove's voice was steady, her words deliberate. This court finds clear and convincing evidence of neglect and abandonment. Custody of Lily Rhodes is awarded to Charlotte Myers on a temporary basis, pending further investigation. The court will assist in locating Lily's father. Janine Rhodes is ordered to attend counseling and is prohibited from unsupervised contact with Lily until further notice. The room exhaled, relief, sorrow, and hope all tangled together. As the gavel fell, Lily burst into tears, burying her face in Scout's neck. The big dog licked her cheek, tail wagging slow and steady as if to say, You're safe now. Charlie felt her own tears burn, but she held them back, smoothing Lily's hair, grateful and stunned. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of purpose, a lightness in her chest where the guilt used to live. Judge Hargrove called Charlie to her chambers. The conversation was quiet, direct. You did the right thing, Charlotte. Lily is lucky to have you. Charlie nodded, voice shaking. I couldn't walk away, not this time. Back in the corridor, Charlie checked her phone. A message blinked on the screen, news that would change everything. Daniel Rhodes, Lily's father, had been found. He was alive, coming home. The revelation hit Charlie with the force of a second storm, hope and uncertainty all over again. What kind of man was Daniel? Would he fight for his daughter? Did Lily still want him after all she'd been through? That night, as they walked out into the sharp Vermont air, Scout trotting ahead and Lily nestled under Charlie's coat, the world felt wider, full of possibility and risk. For now, they had won a battle. The war for Lily's heart and her future was only just beginning. The hospital waiting room had never felt so tense. Charlotte sat at the end of a row of plastic chairs, her palms slick with nervous sweat. Scout sprawled quietly at her feet, head on paws, while Lily traced slow circles on the arm of her chair, lost in a world of her own making. Every so often she'd glance at the door, hope and dread mingling on her face. Charlie's heart squeezed every time. Word had spread quickly. Daniel Rhodes was on his way home. He'd been found through military records, discharged months earlier after a long deployment. Now he was coming back, returning not to the wife he'd left behind, but to a daughter who'd survived what no child should endure. A cold wind rattled the windows, and then the door swung open. Daniel stood in the entry, shoulders stooped beneath a heavy coat, duffel bag slung over one arm. He was thinner than his photos, haunted around the eyes, jaw rough with travel stubble. He paused. the room going silent as he took in the sight of his daughter. Lily froze. Her hands gripped the fabric of her dress, and she shrank closer to Scout, eyes wide and wary. Charlie stepped back, giving them space, even as every instinct screamed to protect the girl beside her. Daniel knelt. He set the duffel aside, palms open, and spoke in a voice that trembled with fear and longing. "Hey, Lilypad, it's Daddy. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I came as soon as I heard." Lily didn't move, not at first. She looked at Charlie, seeking something in her face, then back to Daniel. Scout nudged her gently, as if encouraging her to try. Slowly, Lily slipped off her chair and crossed the distance, Scout at her side. She stopped an arm's length away. Daniel's eyes brimmed with tears. "I missed you so much. I'm sorry I left you." There was a beat of silence. Then Lily flung herself into his arms, sobbing so hard her words dissolved into hiccups. Daniel hugged her tight, rocking her gently, murmuring promises into her hair. I'm here, I'll never leave again, I swear." Charlie looked away, unable to keep her own eyes dry. Scout stayed close, tail thumping, nose nudging Daniel's leg as if to say, "You're welcome, but don't forget what she's been through." When Lily finally pulled away, Daniel tried to wipe her tears, but she held up a hand. "You promise you're staying this time?" Her voice was so small it broke Charlie's heart. Daniel swallowed hard. "I promise. I wasn't strong before, but I'm going to be now. For you." He reached out, hand trembling, and Lily placed her tiny palm in his. Scout sat beside them, pressing his head under Lily's arm, uniting the trio. Charlie stepped forward, her own voice rough. "Daniel, you've missed a lot. Lily's been through more than any kid should. She needs you, but you have to be ready for that." Daniel nodded, the weight of his mistakes settling across his face. "I know. I want to do this right, but I'm scared I'll mess up again." Charlie didn't flinch from the truth. "Then get help. Go to therapy with her. Learn to be her dad again. She deserves that." A silence stretched, heavy with old regrets and new hope. Scout's ears perked as Lily gently tugged Daniel's hand. "Come meet Scout, Daddy. He saved me." Daniel looked at the German shepherd, gratitude and awe in his eyes. He dropped to his knees, reaching out to scratch Scout's head. "Thank you, buddy. I owe you everything." Scout responded with a single bark, tail wagging, his eyes bright as if he understood every word. Over the next few days, Daniel stayed in a spare room at the hospital, never far from Lily's side. He sat in on therapy sessions, learned her new bedtime routine, and listened as she whispered stories to Scout at night. Every moment was a chance to rebuild trust, one piece at a time. On a chilly afternoon, the three of them, Lily, Daniel, and Scout, walked the hospital gardens, breathing in the sharp winter air. Charlie watched from a distance, heart swelling with pride and anxiety. Daniel knelt in the frost, arms open as Lily ran to him, Scout chasing at her heels. There was laughter, real and bubbling, for the first time in ages. That night, Daniel sat at Charlie's side, voice low. "I can't undo what's happened, but I want to be her father again. I want to be better." Charlie squeezed his shoulder. "You're here now. That's what matters." Before bed, Lily drew a new picture, a family of 3 with Scout right in the center, big and smiling. She handed it to Daniel, who pinned it above her bed, his hands trembling. "I won't let you down again, Lilypad." Later, Daniel made a call to a local therapist, scheduling joint sessions for himself and Lily. "We're going to heal together," he promised her, voice steady. Scout lay between them as they talked, offering silent support. His eyes flickered from father to daughter, ears twitching at every soft word. In those small, ordinary moments, brushing Lily's hair, sharing soup around a hospital table, laughing over Scout's antics, a new family began to take shape. The wounds were still raw, the scars still fresh, but hope ran like a quiet current beneath everything. For the first time, Charlie allowed herself to believe in second chances. And as Lily curled up beside Scout, drifting to sleep with Daniel's arms wrapped around her, it felt like the world was beginning again. Spring arrived slow in Vermont, the snow receding from fields in gentle patches, birds calling from dripping branches. Weeks had passed since the courtroom verdict, and the world outside seemed to thaw alongside the lives inside Charlotte's old farmhouse. Daniel found a modest place to rent just down the road, a white cottage with a sloping porch and an overgrown yard. It wasn't much, but to Lily, it was the first real home she'd known in years. On moving day, Scout rode in the front seat, tail wagging, nose pressed to the glass as Daniel and Charlie carried boxes and Lily trailed behind with her arms full of blankets and battered stuffed animals. Neighbors showed up with casseroles and toolboxes, fixing leaky pipes and patching the roof. There was always someone at the door, Mrs. Albright with homemade bread, Mr. Perry with a bucket of daffodils, even Nurse Elena, who dropped off a cake and stayed to chat over coffee. The town wrapped itself around the little family like a quilt, and for the first time, Lily started to believe the worst was truly behind her. Daniel struggled at first. Old habits died hard, and some nights he'd pace the porch, haunted by memories of the war and of all the things he'd missed. He started seeing a therapist twice a week, sometimes alone, sometimes with Lily by his side. Those sessions were hard, full of halting words, apologies, and awkward silences, but slowly a bridge formed between them. Lily began to talk more, her voice gaining confidence, her eyes losing some of their haunted edge. Charlie visited often, usually with Scout bounding through the door ahead of her. She kept a watchful eye, never interfering, but always ready to step in if Lily needed a gentle hand or Daniel looked lost. Scout split his time evenly, sleeping at Daniel's feet some nights and at Lily's side others. In the little town, he became something of a legend, a hero dog with a gift for sensing hurt and hope in equal measure. School was Lily's next challenge. Charlie drove her the first day, Scout riding along for comfort. The other kids stared at first, but soon curiosity took over, and Lily found herself surrounded by new faces asking questions about Scout. She answered in short, shy bursts at first, but with each day, her circle of friends widened. She brought Scout in for show and tell, told her class how he'd rescued her, and for once, the story didn't end in fear, but in laughter. Daniel found steady work at the hardware store, his hands busy and his mind grateful for the routine. Evenings, he'd cook dinner with Lily, the two of them moving clumsily around the tiny kitchen, burning toast, overcooking pasta, and laughing at their mistakes. Charlie came by for Sunday dinners, and those meals grew noisy and bright, filled with stories, gentle teasing, and Scout nudging knees under the table for scraps. As the days grew longer, the community organized a welcome home party. Tables groaned under platters of food, and the whole town turned up. There was music and dancing on the grass, kids running wild, and Lily beaming in the center of it all with Daniel's arm draped around her shoulders and Scout lying at her feet like a king. Nurse Elena gave a toast, her voice catching as she spoke of second chances and the power of showing up for each other. That night, after the last slice of cake was gone and the fireflies winked in the field, Daniel knelt beside Lily in the soft grass. "You know," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I used to think family was something you were born with, but I was wrong. It's something you build, together." Lily hugged him tight, Scout pressing his nose between them, and Charlie watched from the porch, tears shining in her eyes. It felt, finally, like everyone belonged. In the days that followed, Lily drew more and more. Pictures of a house with a red door, a big dog sprawled across a sunlit rug, stick figures with wide smiles. Her latest drawing showed all four of them, herself, Daniel, Charlie, and Scout, standing hand in hand beneath a bright, forgiving sky. Still, healing wasn't a straight line. Some nights Daniel startled awake from nightmares, breathing hard, and Lily came running to his side. Other times, Lily's hands would tremble at a sudden noise, her scars still echoing with memory, but Scout was always there, patient, steady, curling close to whoever needed comfort most. One afternoon, Charlie stood at her daughter's grave, fingers trailing over the weathered stone. She spoke softly, telling her all about Lily and Daniel and the second chance she'd never believed she'd get. For the first time in years, the ache in her chest eased, replaced by a quiet peace. The farmhouse was filled now with laughter and life. Scout's paws thundering up and down the stairs, Lily's bright voice reading aloud, Daniel humming as he made coffee. Charlie no longer felt like a visitor in her own story. She was part of something bigger, woven into the fabric of this new, imperfect family. And as spring tipped towards summer, Lily lay on the porch swing, Scout's head in her lap, sketching another picture for the fridge. In the background, Daniel and Charlie planted flowers together, their laughter carried on the breeze. The world wasn't perfect, but for the first time, it felt enough. Summer brought bright mornings and the sweet hum of bees and wildflowers outside Charlotte's window. Life, for the first time in a long while, felt almost ordinary. But beneath the ordinary, within every routine, every meal, every shared laugh, was a new kind of strength, forged from the pain and hope each of them carried. For Charlotte, healing had always felt like a distant dream, something she worked for others but never allowed herself. The scars of her daughter's death ran deep. She'd lived years in emotional winter, hiding behind work, behind Scout, behind the walls she'd built after the army. But Lily's arrival had forced those walls to crack. Watching Lily draw, watching her sleep curled beside Scout, Charlotte saw echoes of her own little girl, not as a wound to avoid, but as a reason to show up. She found herself talking about her daughter again, telling Lily bedtime stories she'd long ago locked away. The act of saving Lily wasn't just about Lily. It was Charlotte's way back to the world. And slowly she began to believe that redemption wasn't a one-time gift, but something you built day by day, out of forgiveness and service. One golden evening, Charlotte, Daniel, and Lily sat on the porch steps, drinking lemonade, the air thick with the scent of new-cut grass. Daniel cleared his throat, staring into his glass, the silence settling heavy. "You know," he began, "I used to think if I just worked hard enough, did everything right, I could fix everything. Turns out you can't outwork guilt. You have to face it." His hand shook, but Lily reached over, tangling her fingers with his. Scout sat between them, resting his big head in Lily's lap, breathing slow and steady. Daniel's journey back to fatherhood was full of sharp corners. At first, he wanted to fix everything with grand gestures, gifts, trips, apologies that spilled out at bedtime. But Lily didn't need grand gestures. She needed honesty. Some nights, Daniel would tuck her in, only for Lily to whisper, "Promise you won't leave?" The fear in her eyes, raw, honest, and old beyond her years, cut deeper than any battlefield wound. It forced Daniel to confront his own ghosts, the shame of leaving, the reasons he'd run, the pain he'd brought home from war and dropped unspoken at his daughter's feet. Therapy became their shared language, a place where Daniel learned to talk and Lily learned to trust that words could mean what they said. There were setbacks, nights when Daniel lost his temper, mornings when Lily refused to get out of bed. But they learned to forgive each other and themselves. Daniel's courage wasn't in being unbreakable, but in letting Lily see him try again after he failed. And with each faltering step, the distance between them shrank. For Lily, healing meant relearning the world. Trauma had taught her to hide. Quiet, obedient, always bracing for the next blow. But with Scout beside her and Charlie always nearby, she discovered new freedoms. She laughed more, her drawings filling the fridge and her walls, her stories turning from fear to adventure. School was still hard. There were teachers who didn't understand, kids who asked questions too loudly. But Lily faced each day a little braver. She made a friend, a wild-haired girl named Molly, and for the first time, invited someone home for a sleepover. Watching Molly and Lily giggle on the porch swing, Charlotte felt an ache of joy she thought she'd lost forever. Scout, steadfast as ever, became the heart of their new family. He sensed moods before anyone else did, settling beside Lily when nightmares threatened, bumping Daniel's hand for attention on the tough days, pressing against Charlie's legs in the quiet hours when grief crept back in. To the community, he was the hero dog. But to the family, he was the silent promise that no one had to carry their pain alone. The larger community played its part, too. Woodstock, never a place that let anyone slip through the cracks, stepped up with open doors and watchful eyes. Neighbors helped Daniel with odd jobs. Teachers paid extra attention to Lily, and Charlie found herself drawn into town committees and backyard barbecues. She realized that family could be chosen, built from the kindness and grit of people who stuck around when it mattered. One evening, with dusk painting everything soft blue and gold, Charlotte gathered Daniel and Lily on the back porch. She took a breath, feeling the cool air steady her. "We've all lost something," she said quietly, "but I think maybe that's how you find each other, by showing up in the ruins and deciding to stay." Daniel reached for her hand, Lily for his, Scout's nose nudging their arms until the four of them made a circle, unbroken. There were no promises that life would always be easy or that scars would ever truly fade, but that was okay. What mattered was the decision to choose each other, over and over, even when it hurt. Later that night, Lily climbed into bed, Scout curling up beside her. She stared at the ceiling, tracing the patterns of shadows and moonlight, and whispered, "Thank you for finding me, Scout." The big dog licked her hand, a simple answer, always. Downstairs, Daniel and Charlotte talked softly in the kitchen. They made plans for the future, not just for Lily, but for themselves. There was talk of a family camping trip, of repainting Lily's room, of learning to bake bread together. The conversations were small, the dreams ordinary, but for this little family they meant everything. Outside, the world spun on, imperfect, unpredictable, and full of possibility. Autumn swept through Woodstock, Vermont, with a golden blaze, maples glowing against a blue sky, crisp air carrying the scent of wood smoke and apples. The farmhouse and cottage were busy with the quiet joys of a family remade. Lily's laughter echoing from the porch, Daniel's voice humming a tune in the kitchen, Scout's paws pattering on wooden floors. In this new season, each day felt like a small miracle, ordinary and sacred at once. Charlotte often found herself pausing in the kitchen, hand on her heart, marveling at the way life had changed. Just a few months ago, her world was marked by silence and loss. Now the echo of old pain was replaced with the steady rhythm of love in action, shared chores, evening walks, Scout's gentle nudges when anyone needed comfort. The past wasn't erased, but its sharpness dulled by connection and daily acts of care. Looking back, it seemed almost impossible. How one night, a single act of courage, following Scout into a storm, set off a chain reaction that changed so many lives. That one decision didn't just save Lily, it redeemed Charlotte, transformed Daniel, and brought a community together. One evening, as the first leaves began to fall, Charlotte gathered Daniel, Lily, and Scout on the porch. She wanted to mark this new chapter with words that would linger long after the sun dipped behind the mountains. "Sometimes you don't realize how much you matter," she began, her voice steady but soft. "You think your pain is yours alone, your mistakes too heavy to heal. But when you reach out, when you risk being there for someone else, you change more than one life. You start a ripple." That's what happened here. Daniel nodded, eyes shining. "I thought I had to be strong for everyone. Turns out strength is letting yourself be helped, showing up, even when you're scared." Scout thumped his tail, pressing his nose into Lily's lap. She giggled, stroking his ears. "Scout never lets us be sad for too long," she said, a wisdom beyond her years. Later, the family gathered in the kitchen to cook dinner, pots clanging, laughter rising, flour dusting Lily's hair as Daniel taught her how to knead dough. Scout begged under the table, catching stray bites and making everyone laugh. For a moment, even the scars, the memories of stormy barns, empty nights, and courtroom battles felt like ancient history. After dinner, Charlie watched as Lily curled up beside Scout on the rug, her breath slowing, fingers tangled in his fur. Daniel sat beside them, his hand resting on Lily's back. The soft yellow light cast their shadows together, a living portrait of healing, forgiveness, and hope. It wasn't just their family that had changed. The town, too, seemed different. Neighbors checked in on each other more often. The school counselor started a support group for kids who'd been through hard times. Folks began to ask, "What can I do?" instead of, "Whose fault is this?" The ripple of compassion from that stormy night reached farther than Charlotte could have imagined. As the days shortened and the fire in the hearth grew brighter, Charlie found herself visiting her daughter's grave less often. She talked to her late child in the quiet of the garden, her words now full of gratitude rather than regret. "We made it," she'd whisper. "We found each other." The family took up new rituals, Sunday hikes, pancake breakfasts, planting bulbs in the yard for next spring. Lily made a habit of drawing pictures for neighbors, often signing them with a crayon heart and Scout's paw print. Even Daniel joined in, finding purpose in the small, steady acts that built trust and belonging. Through it all, Scout remained the soul of the house, always present, always listening, a silent reminder that sometimes the deepest comfort comes not from words, but from simply being together. In time, Lily's nightmares faded. She started to sleep through the night, her breathing slow and easy with Scout by her side. Daniel talked more openly about his struggles and victories. Charlie dared to plan for a future that wasn't haunted by the past. They knew scars would always remain, but those scars had become places where something beautiful had grown. On a cool October night, the family gathered around a backyard fire. The stars overhead were sharp and clear. Lily lay with her head on Scout's chest, Daniel's arm wrapped around her, Charlie leaning back against Daniel's shoulder. They watched the embers dance and drift, each lost in their own thoughts. Charlie spoke, voice gentle but certain. If there's anything I hope we remember, it's this. Healing takes time, and no one can do it alone. Real strength is in asking for help, and real family is what you choose and build every day. Lily nodded, her eyes growing heavy with sleep. "We're safe now," she whispered. "We're home." Scout's breathing was the last sound before silence settled, deep and peaceful. And so the story closes, not with grand gestures or perfect endings, but with the truth that every act of kindness, every moment of courage, ripples outward. Charlotte, Daniel, Lily, and Scout stood as proof that even the deepest wounds can be transformed, not erased, but woven into a tapestry of love, forgiveness, and hope. As the fire burned low and the night wrapped around them, there was only one thing left to do: keep living, keep loving, and keep reaching for the light.